Get it, boys.
What is up, everyone? My name is Robert Husby. Welcome to HTF Bets. I'm joined along with today my friend and co-host Nick Geddes. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm doing very good, Robert. It's been a great weekend of sports, and we have another great weekend coming up, and I'm very excited to dive into what's going on.
Absolutely. And we're doing things a little bit different this week. We're talking something that I feel like a lot of shows haven't talked about, and that's golf. And the US Open is this weekend. Starts today. Today is, of course, Thursday. Um, and we're bringing on newcomer Abby Bass. Abby, how you doing today?
I'm doing so great. I'm so thankful to be here, and I can't believe we're talking about the US Open in September, but it's crazy, but it's exciting. I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely different this year with the whole pandemic. You know, everything's been moved back. Masters has been moved back to October next month. This month we got the US Open. Definitely pretty strange. But we got golf in September. We got a big tournament, one of the biggest tournaments. And we have to talk about the US Open here. So Nick, if you had a favorite golfer for this tournament going into the weekend, who do you got for the US Open this year?
Well, I mean, it sounds like the boring answer because he is the world number one, but I'm saying Dustin Johnson, and I'm not saying that because he's the world number one, but the way he has played in the last few tournaments that ended really the 2020 campaign, I guess you could call it, the way he played ending that is some of the best golf that I've seen played by anybody in the last decade. It was just spectacular. I don't think anybody could touch him. He improved his putting so much, and he's become one of the best putters on tour, and we already know he had the long ball going, and he just has been fantastic. And I really love this it's like a friendly rivalry going on with Jon Rahm, who's, the number two in the world. I think both of them have to be the odds-on favorites by far in this tournament because they've both been playing some spectacular golf. I'm really looking forward to that, and I think if we get to Sunday and those guys are in the hunt, I would love to see them paired together and see how they could challenge. It's a very tough golf course they're playing at, Winged Foot. Tiger came out yesterday and said it's the hardest course he's ever played. So it's going to be a very difficult course. It's going to test these golfers. And because of that, I'm going to go with the best golfers on tour, Dustin Johnson and Jon Rahm, to be the favorites.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that seems to be the consensus favorite for pretty much any expert right now is Dustin Johnson or Jon Rahm. And, obviously Dustin Johnson's coming fresh off of a FedEx Cup win. So that's fresh in everybody's mind. Gary Woodland, who won the US Open last year, is nowhere near the top 10 golfers right now in favorites. So it's a bit of a surprise. I think he was pretty much a surprise win last year. But Abby, who do you have as your favorite coming into the weekend?
It's so hard not to pick DJ because of how well he's played recently, but I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to pick Xander Schauffele because he's played great recently, just like DJ. But in his last 3 US Open starts, he's finished tied for 6th, tied for 5th, and tied for 3rd. And he has never been out of the top 10 in any US Opens he's started. He came in tied for 2nd at the Tour Championship next to Justin Thomas. He's had 7 top 10s this season, from the 2020 season. I think he is one of those young guys who can really compete with DJ, Justin Thomas, even Jon Rahm. I think he has a great chance of winning this week.
Yeah, it's a good pick. Yeah, I agree with Nick. I had to go boring. I'm picking Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm won, both the BMW championship earlier this year. I think with Jon Rahm, his game just seems fitted for tough courses like this, and he's playing some of his best golf right now. And like you said, Nick, I think with this sort of friendly competitive rivalry between him and Dustin Johnson, it just has elevated both of their games. And I think that's great to see because golf kind of needs it. I mean, golf is at its best when you have these really eccentric golfers, these really, sort of deep rivalries where, they push each other to the top. But now that we've, sort of got the favorites out of the way, Nick, I'm going to go to you again. What, if you had to have a sleeper pick in this tournament, who would be that sleeper pick, one of these underdogs?
Well, he's ranked number 11 in the world, so he is a known commodity, but I'm going to go with Patrick Cantlay. In all these majors that he's played in a few majors. He's very new to the tour in recent years. He has always competed very well in them, and it seems like when they get to moving day on Saturday or Sunday, he started to fall down a little bit. But I think he has what it takes to really step up in the US Open here. and become a sleeper pick to win this. Abby talked about Xander Schauffele. I thought that was a great pick because, as she said, he is very competitive in these opens, and he's come so close to winning. So he was going to be my other sleeper pick to win this as well. But Patrick Cantlay, I think, is a young guy. I think Colin Morikawa gets all the headlines for being the best young golfer on tour, and I think Cantlay, his resume is pretty well established so far in his run. So I think he has a really big shot to get out in front and win the U.S. Open this week.
That's a good pick. I like that. Abby, what about you? Who are you feeling for a sleeper pick here?
So my sleeper pick, I'm going to go with Daniel Berger. He actually had 7 top 10s in his last 11 starts in the 2020 season. He won the Charles Schwab Cup in June 14th. He finished solo third at the Northern Trust, which a lot of people say that course, TPC Boston, is similar to Winged Foot. Winged Foot is going to be so difficult. Those greens are going to be like glass. The rough's going to be insane, as usual with any US Open. But I think if anybody can step up on that leaderboard next to Dustin, Xander Schauffele, and others, I think it's Daniel Berger. I wouldn't be surprised if he was in one of those last groupings on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a fair point too. And you mentioned the conditions and stuff like that. I think it's going to be really interesting, with weather to play in, and also green conditions and stuff like that. It's going to be definitely interesting to see how tough this U.S. Open is this time around in the fall, or at least at the break of the fall. For my underdog pick, I'm gonna go Adam Scott. Adam Scott doesn't have nearly as much experience on as some of the other guys in the top 20, but Adam Scott's finished 4 out of his last 6 times in the U.S. Open. He's finished top 20, so I think that really plays into his game a lot. And also, he's so good with irons that I think when you have your iron game down, especially for a rough green like this, I think it's really puts you from being in the lower half of the field to the upper half of the field now. And so I would expect big things out of Adam Scott this weekend. One thing I want to throw in, what do we expect out of Tiger Woods this week? Nick, you mentioned Tiger Woods, talking about, just how tough this course is. What do we think Tiger's going to make the cut this week? I mean, he's been struggling as of late, really since he won the Masters last year. He's been struggling. What do you expect out of Tiger Woods this week?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him to make the cut. And as sad as that is, to me, it's the reality. This is a very hard course to play. It's not going to fare well on him. And, you've been seeing in recent tournaments, he's grown very frustrated, visibly frustrated as things have started to go bad and he's started to unspiral a little bit. It sucks because we all want to see Tiger Woods in competing on a Sunday. As a golf fan, we want to see it. And I'm hoping that it happens. But unfortunately, I think the Tiger Woods nowadays he can be the best golfer in the world on any day, but those days are going to be very few and far between. And unfortunately, the way he's been trending right now, I haven't seen anything that lets me know that he's going to be a major player in this U.S. Open. So unfortunately, I'm going to say he probably is not going to make the cut. That's just the way I feel right now. And I don't know how the back is going to hold up. We always just have to hope and pray that it does. But I just don't have much confidence in him right now. And I struggle to see where his confidence lies as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely great points. I think with Tiger, it seems like, he was starting to get his game back a little bit. Again, when I mentioned the Masters last year, it seemed like all was sort of coming back right in the world of golf with Tiger. But yeah, I mean, I think with the back injuries, it's just definitely weighed on his career. And we know that. We know it. He's not the same golfer he was when he was in his prime. And it is sad to see because, as I mentioned before, it's just with how dynamic golf can be when you have a megastar like Tiger Woods, a guy that just transcends the sport. And, even if you don't watch the sport, people know who Tiger Woods is. People know he's the best in the world. Speaking of one of the best in the world, that would be Brooks Koepka. Abby, Brooks Koepka had to pull out of this weekend with injuries. He said they're still bothering him a lot. He doesn't, want to risk it and stuff like that. He was one of the favorites coming into this weekend. How big of an effect, especially with betting and stuff like that, how big of an effect do you think that's felt with Brooks Koepka not playing this weekend?
It's absolutely huge. He would have been one of the favorites to win for sure. He already has 2 US Open wins. He's one of the best players in the world. And I was devastated when I heard he wasn't going to play because he would have made Sunday at Winged Foot really, really interesting. He's one of the most athletic golfers on the whole tour. He's dominant with his driver. I mean, he would have made this tournament really, really fun. I'm disappointed he's not going to play. It's definitely going to affect the betting world for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, what do you think about that? How big of an effect do you think we see from Brooks Koepka pulling out of this weekend? Obviously, it's still definitely an interesting weekend, but definitely a little bit less interesting when one of the favorites has to pull out due to injuries.
Yeah, Brooks Koepka, he's a big game player. If you look at his entire career, he shows up in these majors, specifically the US Open. He shows up to win. He doesn't really show up in all the smaller tournaments, and it's like he's saving all of it for these big tournaments. So this hurts him not to be able to play in this tournament in a place that he would thrive off of, and the pressure. And also, he's one of the more polarizing players in golf. Some people like him. A lot of people really don't like him at all for a lot of the comments he's made in press conferences. So he's very polarizing and brings a lot of eyes to golf, I think, as well, and has those little rivalries on the course with like Rory McIlroy and among others. So I think he's good for the game of golf. And I think anytime you don't have a great golfer like this in a big time tournament, it's definitely a stain. But there's so many great golfers that are here. We've touched on many of them so far. It's very wide open, I will say, because I think Koepka, if he was playing, because of his track record and because of how well he shows up in these majors, I thought he was going to be the number one favorite going into this week. But without him, it's going to be wide open, and we'll see if Dustin Johnson can finally get more major championships added to his resume, or somebody else can get there first.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely going to be interesting to see come this weekend, especially because we, are getting such a big rivalry between Rahm and Dustin Johnson, and it is the two best golfers in the world. And, as we've mentioned, it's very clear that they're the two favorites coming into this tournament and coming into this weekend. And I think with, having that rivalry, it's going to make this a very interesting weekend. I also think that, we could see a sleeper win here. And if we see that, it does get interesting because everybody's, talking about Rahm and Dustin Johnson. But here we go, you might get somebody that's out of the top 10 favorites right now that can, slot in, make the top 5, or even win the entire tournament. So, it really is an unprecedented weekend because we haven't seen, the US Open this late in the season. And I think that's going to be really fun to see some of these major tournaments that usually happen in March and April push back to the fall. So thank you so much, guys, for being on here talking golf. I'm glad we finally got some golf content on here. We needed that. I think golf is one of those sports that people overlook a lot, and it really is one of the fun ones to bet on, one of the fun ones to watch. So thank you guys for being with me for this first segment. When we come back from break, we're going to be talking fantasy football. Stick around with us. Welcome back to HTF Bets. We're joined by our other co-host for the day, Mr. Okelo Pena. You can see he's all dressed up nice and fancy. His Denver Nuggets coming fresh off a W, upsetting the Clippers last night. Okelo, how you doing today?
Feeling great. Just dusted off the future trophy. Well, this isn't the Larry O'Brien trophy, of course. This is just a trophy from youth football, but it's been a long time coming, Robert. This old school Nuggets hat, everything. I'm all fired up today. Sorry, John Whitley, I took it over, but man, today's a great day to be a Denver Nuggets fan. And I'm so happy that Nick finally caught a fresh hot L for the first time this year, and it's going to be many more to come with it, I promise you. I'm feeling great today.
Oh my! Well, you're definitely fired up this morning, I'm sure. Sean, the host of Almost Game Day on Fridays. Sean, how you doing? You're joining us today for our fantasy football segment and our next segment after this. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I love to be on HTF Bets. I love the show. I'm sorry I'm not as enthused as Okelo. Usually my teams win all the time, so it's not as big a deal. But we'll give Okelo this one. He's in a good mood. I'm excited to be here and talk with you guys.
Yeah, you've been catching a lot of L's from game one if that wasn't adamant with the Heat.
Really, the only question I have for Okelo, honestly, before we get started, is if the Nuggets and the Heat get to the finals, is he going to do like a half Heat, half Nuggets jersey? Like, because he's a fan, like he is a fan of both. Just for the audience, just to let you know, like he is a hardcore fan of both. So that's, where I'm kind of getting a little confused.
I'm from Fort Lauderdale. I'm from South Florida. It's the team that I've seen win most of the titles. So, I got to represent for South Beach, South Florida. But, this is what I've waited for as a Nuggets fan for a long time. So we haven't been to the championship since the old ABA days. I got to root for Denver. It's our turn. It's our time.
Oh, with that, we'll get to basketball. We'll have plenty of talk on that in the next segment. But we're gonna start with fantasy football. So we have a fantasy league here at HTF. It's all the co-hosts of every show that we're doing this year, and we're all a part of it. It went pretty well, I think. I didn't do too horribly. I was matched up with Sean week 1. Sean, you took that one. I took the L. How do you think your first week went there?
As best as I can expect. I was a little nervous going into the week. Robert's got a pretty good team. It's an 8-person league, so everybody's team has a good chunk of players that do well, except Okelo's team. We'll get to that in a second. But really, every team's got a bunch of good players. I'm looking at Robert's team. Going in, I was like, oh, great. He's got Lamar Jackson at QB1 and Christian McCaffrey at RB1. So I'm like, oh, God. It's not looking good for me. He's got DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce. All you fantasy owners would, kill to have that team. Now, my team's not terrible. I got Russell Wilson, Alvin Kamara, Tyreek Hill. So my team's talent-wise would say is a little less talented. Problem is Robert needs a couple extra players. He has Cam Akers at RB2, which, Robert will tell you is a problem. But I killed it. Mark Andrews, starting tight end, really killed it for me. I think that evened out the Lamar Jackson numbers a little bit with him scoring 22.8. Patriots defense came up big. Again, Julian Edelman and my flex. I put him in my flex. Amari Cooper scoring 18.1 for me. I definitely want to see him do a little bit better. It looked like he was getting a lot of targets and a lot of receptions, but not a lot of yards. So hopefully in the coming weeks, Dallas's defense can get better. I don't see it happening, but hopefully that will be the case. My one concern right now is Austin Eckler. I started him, and I think he's not going to be as productive as last year until Tyrod Taylor goes to the bench. So I ended up winning 156 to 141 against Robert. Hard-fought victory, but I'm starting 1-0, and I'm very pleased with my team's performance.
Yeah, you brought up great points there. I mean, definitely some of my depth pieces I don't think really performed for me. T.Y. Hilton only got me 9 points. Cam Akers really didn't get that many touches. Darrell Henderson got me half a point. Should have started Malcolm Brown. I don't have Malcolm Brown. I don't think anybody does, actually. So he might be one to look at to replacing one of my underperforming running backs. But even here, I have Deebo Samuel on my team, and he didn't even get a touch. So, it's pretty weak in the bench area, and I had a lot of underperformers. But luckily, Aaron Rodgers dropped 30. He's on my bench. I have Lamar Jackson starting. Yeah, so it's a nice 1-2 there. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is going to come through. Kelce could have been a little bit better, but, he did get me it. DeAndre Hopkins did well.
Your DeAndre Hopkins saved your team. I was sweating my pants yesterday. I'm like, oh, my God, DeAndre Hopkins has 40 points. I'm like, that could end me there. But thank God Cooper Kupp and Cam Akers saved my life. So I thank the Rams for that.
For sure. Okelo, how'd you do in week 1, and how you looking ahead of this week?
Not too good. I mean, Kayla, credit to her. She had Patrick Mahomes on my team, on her team. Matt Ryan did me well. Of course, I had Ezekiel Elliott. Made the mistake by choosing Kenyon Drake over let me rephrase that. Joe Mixon over Kenyon Drake, excuse me. It wasn't too good. Obviously, I know some players need some work. I took a chance on Odell Beckham because I really believed he's going to have a bounce back year, but I kept him on the bench just because I didn't trust the Ravens matchup this week. Ironically, I listened to you, and it saved me, but it couldn't save me from the week 1 L that I got. But I got Malcolm Brown, and I'm very happy that I was able to swipe him up off the waiver wire before anybody else could. So I'm hoping for a good bounce back week 2. I got A.J. Brown and Marvin Jones starting. I'm hoping Hayden Hurst can have a bounce back game, and I'm looking maybe to change up my defense for the Broncos. Just as long as Matt Ryan and Ezekiel Elliott do well, I just know I'm just going to have a good week.
For sure. Nick, you're the final one here. How did you do? You did pretty well week 1. How do you like your matchup going into this week?
I'm facing Noah Kemper, and he finished second in the league in points, lost to John Whitley by 2 points. And so it's going to be a very tough matchup, but I feel very well about my team. Everybody I put in my lineup did pretty well, except for Allen Robinson. He didn't really get many touches. And, of course, all the controversy with him right now with the Bears is kind of scaring me. But Calvin Ridley is a guy that I've been very high on. I said he could finish as a top 10 receiver in fantasy, and I believe he was the number 2 or 3 receiver this week in fantasy, so he was awesome. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Dalvin Cook I think it's one of the better running back tandems in this league, and I think they're going to really carry me a lot going forward. I'm a little concerned Chris Godwin's in concussion protocol, but I have DK Metcalf on my bench ready to slot in against Sean Green's New England Patriots. So if DK Metcalf has to go, I'm very confident in that, and I'm very confident heading into week 2.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I was watching your team. You were like raking up points on last Thursday. I mean,
Nick's team is scary.
Yeah,
Nick's team is. It's the same thing with Robert. Again, there's a reason they're the host of the show with Okelo. Again, Okelo's team's not that good, but Robert and Nick's is like I don't want to ever play them. Thank God I got it this week with the win. Well, I'm playing Okelo this week, so again, 2-0, easy week.
No, you're not.
Again, gonna be first after this week.
This is gonna be a W. It's gonna be a W for me.
You told me you were starting Marvin Jones. You're starting Marvin Jones and AJ Brown.
Did you not see what Adam Thielen performed against that Packers secondary? Marvin Jones is gonna do the exact same thing to them.
So for hindsight, if you look at Okelo's team, okay, I think he only had 3 players that scored over 10 points. And that was quarterback, wide receiver 1, and I believe your flex scored over 10.
No, Ezekiel Elliott got me points.
Yeah, I said your quarterback, your running back, your starting quarterback, running back, and then I think your flex. Your wide receivers are kind of suspect. Like you said, Odell, probably going to get traded in about a week or 2. No big deal. That might help you. That might help Okelo's team. But scoring 102, it's not looking like Okelo's going to do much this week. I'm having a couple issues. I'm not really confident in Russell Wilson this week going against the New England Patriots. He went against a really lackluster defense in Atlanta, so it was very easy to start him, putting up the numbers he did. I'm very scared to put him in the starting lineup. I feel like it's a little too early to take him out, but we'll see how it goes. I also picked up who did I pick up? This is going to scare Okelo because, I picked up Nyheim Hines from the Colts. That was a great pickup. So that might be a potential starter this week in the flex or as a starting RB in place of Austin Eckler just until Justin Herbert gets that starting job. But this is really just a tester week. It's a feel him out week. I'm going to win, and I'll just, I might put my bench in just to see how they perform and see who to cut.
I've already had a good week. This you gonna get an L, Sean. I've never been 0-2 in any fantasy league of records that I've been in, and it ain't gonna start this week. I promise you.
Well, I think you can ask Robert and Nick who they think will probably win this week, and I think they can tell you pretty easily who they think.
Projections don't mean nothing.
I've heard Okelo's takes. He ain't winning anything. He ain't winning anything, and not against Sean Green. That ain't happening this week, Okelo. So. Sean, yeah,
all right.
He got the brain.
Come back next week. Come back next week when you catch another L, Nick. Like you've been doubting my Nuggets, okay? Just get ready to catch another L for another. Let's
go in the next segment, Okelo. Next segment. Stop talking about basketball. We're on football. You took a big L this week.
I'm sorry. I didn't take no L. Steelers won on Monday night, if I'm not mistaken. So,
just remember, people, you listen to Okelo starts and sits. That probably got you an L this week. So when we go to our starts and sits, actually don't just take what Okelo says and do the complete opposite, because then we will tell you exactly what to do. Okelo will be right every once in a while. He's a good dude. He knows some stuff. But last week he kind of screwed you over a bit in fantasy. So take that for what you will.
I mean, I was right about Le'Veon Bell, so I'll just stick with that.
I can't defend you on the Jimmy G pick, though.
19 points, though. That's a solid for a QB1. That's solid. Solid.
A little mediocre.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Not going to win you any weeks.
All right. Well, new week, fresh, clean slate. You're going to like my starts. So, Robert, would you please? Let's talk about our starts and sits, my brother.
Yes. We'll get out of that. Good exit there, Okelo. We're going to talk about who we're starting this week. Obviously, everybody's got guys you want to start, based off of last week. We want to do that this week. Nick, I'm going to go to you first. Who is somebody you're going to be starting on your team this week, or that you would recommend somebody start on their team this week?
I would recommend somebody starting Jared Goff this week. I thought that he played all right on Sunday night against Dallas, but I think Sean McVay still has his kind of reservations with him, and I think it's fairly obvious that Sean McVay is so important to Jared Goff that they just can't just let him go. like a lot of other young quarterbacks get to do. Like Kyler Murray, we saw he clearly has command of that offense and the play calling and what's going on with that team. Jared Goff, though, I think has a really good matchup this week against Philadelphia. Philadelphia, I thought, allowed Dwayne Haskins to have a pretty okay showing. And I think Jared Goff is way more talented than Dwayne Haskins. They have Darius Slay on the outside, and it'll be interesting to see who he's matched up with, if it's going to be Cooper Kupp or Van Jefferson. I imagine it's going to be Cooper Kupp. But, there's still Robert Woods, and I think Van Jefferson, this is going to be his coming out party. Week 2, I think he's a very big sleeper if he can get some more touches on this team, because I don't trust Avonte Maddox. I don't trust Jalen Mills, Rodney McLeod, and everybody else in that secondary outside of Darius Slay. And I think the Rams are one of my sleeper picks, honestly, this year to go far as well. So I think in order for that to happen, Jared Goff has to play well, and I think he's going to kick off that campaign this week against Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I mean, Jared Goff looked great, I thought, against the Cowboys on Sunday. Looked real comfortable. That definitely helps when the offensive line actually plays well. I mean, that's probably the most, important thing is getting them going. And if they can protect him, he's going to be good this year. He had an absolute dime to Van Jefferson for his first NFL reception. I thought that was a really, really nice throw. Sean, I'm going to go to you next. Who you starting this week, or who would you recommend someone start this week?
Well, to Nick's point really quick, yeah, I think Darius Slay's probably going to take on Robert Woods. So Cooper Kupp probably seems like the obvious start here, and Robert has him. So I think that's definitely a good thought process.
Hope so.
I have two. I'm trying to debate which one to say. Robert has mine right here, but I'm going to say 2 just for the, kicks and giggles. I'm going to go Traquan Smith. Obviously, with Michael Thomas probably down for a couple weeks, Traquan Smith is poised to take a much bigger role with the Saints. The wide receiver play against the Tampa Bay Bucks wasn't very consistent. It kind of looked a little lackluster. It looked like they weren't really in sync. Emmanuel Sanders got a couple touches at the end of the game, but he doesn't look consistent at all. He got the touchdown late, and I think he got like 2 receptions. I personally don't have much trust in Emmanuel Sanders. I would probably go with a guy that's been in that system longer to take over for those contested catches, which most likely is Traquan Smith. My also sleeper, if you're looking for a quarterback not to put up 18 points, but to go a little bit farther than that, I would probably go Cam Newton. Again, they're playing a really bad Seattle defense. They gave Matt Ryan 450 yards. I would expect Cam not to run the ball a whole lot this game. I would expect a lot of throwing down the field. I know that he only threw 19 balls last week. I think it's going to be closer to like 25, 30 this week to try to get those receivers open with that lackluster backfield.
Yeah, and I mean, we were talking last week about Cam Newton, just a lot of doubts. He was one I said, maybe not so much start just because we don't really know where he's coming off of. But, I mean, really an impressive first week from Cam Newton, and I'm really impressed with what I saw. And that was from not even throwing that much. So, if he can take it to the air this weekend against Seattle, I think there's a chance that he actually gets a significant amount of points for anybody on their fantasy team. Okay, well, I'll go to you next. Who's one guy you're starting this week, or you would recommend someone start? Are you agreeing with the guys here, or you see somebody different a little bit here?
I like everybody's pick. I'm not going to lie. I mean, Sean does have me a little bit questionable. I do think that Cam is going to have a far better chance in Seattle this time without the 12th man, since it's going to be empty. But I'm going to go with 2 guys, one as a super sleeper, must start this week, and then a solid start this week. And my solid start, I'm going to go with Raheem Mostert. Last week, he had a stellar performance against the Arizona Cardinals. He got in terms of top 10 of fantasy running backs. He's playing the New York Jets this week, ladies and gentlemen. That's an easy matchup to play against. Raheem Mostert has clearly taken over this starting running back role. I love him this week. I mean, the Jets defense, they have no run support. Devin Singletary had a decent enough day if you had him as a flex, but Raheem Mostert, we're talking about a high-end RB2 this week. So if you have Raheem Mostert this week, you can potentially bet on it that he's going to finish within the top 5 in terms of fantasy points, and he'll be a high-end RB1 when it's all said of it. And quarterback this week, I'm going to go for a stretch on this one, and it's Josh Allen. Why? Miami Dolphins week. Sean, I know you're looking your head in disgust, but remember, last year when Josh Allen played the Dolphins in Hard Rock Stadium, he had over 28 fantasy points per game. I know we have question marks about Josh Allen's consistency, but remember, each and every time he's played the Dolphins, he's at least had 23 points plus in last year's 2 matchups, and I expect that trend to continue. He has so many weapons to throw through. John Brown was highly effective last week. Stephon Diggs is starting to show that he's going to be that wide receiver 1 and Josh Allen security blanket with Dawson Knox. Cole Beasley. I like both of these guys this week, but I expect Josh Allen. I guarantee this week that you can see him finishing maybe within the top 5, but he will be a top 10 fantasy quarterback this week.
That's a decent pick. I mean, Josh Allen's a guy that, you said it. You said with the consistency, I think that's the biggest concern. But he played well last week, really well above average, well above what a lot of people thought he would play like. So, I don't necessarily know if I would start him this week just because of those consistency issues, but because they're playing the Dolphins and the Dolphins had a tough time with the Patriots last week. Yeah, Josh Allen might not be the worst pick. He might be one you start up there. I'm going to go to a quarterback myself. I'm going to go Aaron Rodgers. That's kind of a gimme at this point, especially considering Aaron Rodgers, balled out last week against the Minnesota Vikings. Really gave him a tough time. Honestly, one of the best performances I've seen from Aaron Rodgers in a long time. I mean, he looked great. And I expect that to continue. They're playing the Detroit Lions this weekend. Detroit secondary is super thin right now. Jeff Okudah.
They really missed Darius Slay. That's what they're missing.
Oh yeah.
Desmond Trufant isn't even helping.
Yeah, I mean, they came into the season with a decent set of corners, a decent secondary. I mean, Jeff Okudah gets drafted, but he missed game 1 because of injury. I believe, they're both their starting corners. One goes out in the first half, the other one goes out in the second half. So with, your corners potentially and your safeties potentially being banged up a bit, it's going to be hard trying to defend against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers offense, especially after what they just did to a really good defense in the Minnesota Vikings. So I would go Aaron Rodgers this week as your QB1. He got me more points than Lamar Jackson off the bench last week. So Aaron Rodgers might be who I ride with this weekend, especially with that matchup against the Lions.
I definitely can't undersell enough how great Aaron Rodgers was. Like, I mean, that was like vintage Aaron Rodgers if I've ever seen it. I mean, the way he just makes those throws on the run, like, I mean, the zip on it, and it's just like, I mean, you can't really describe it, but it's like he's just using like his forearm to just throw it. It's so just quick and everything. I mean, it was just beautiful to watch, and I definitely think this week against Detroit's in big trouble.
Yeah,
I made him the big mistake in one of my leagues of records by starting Ben Roethlisberger over Aaron Rodgers, and it cost me big time on Monday night. I just went with my gut because I was like, this is Big Ben's coming out party. I mean, he played well. He got over 22 fantasy points, but unfortunately wasn't enough to help me win.
So when you hear him say that, he's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. It wasn't gut. It was him being a fan. So just, again, no logical person would have started Big Ben over Aaron Rodgers.
But
Just
it was
FYI.
that Minnesota Vikings top 5 defense, but that top 5 defense wasn't even there. It looked like an imposter.
See, if you
Like
for everybody that's made it this far, please go check out my Almost Game Day episode from last Friday, where I actually #1 picked the Green Bay Packers to win the Super Bowl because Aaron Rodgers is on a revenge tour. So if you are a fantasy owner with Aaron Rodgers, play him every week regardless of the defense. He's going to ball out. Let's move on.
All right. Yeah. With that being said, I mean, I definitely got a problem between him and Lamar Jackson now. I got a question. I might go Aaron Rodgers this week. So
hey, if you want, I can trade you something for him. We can make something work.
We'll talk.
No. I need to get it first because, I like Matt Ryan, but as far as QB1 goes, I need something.
Nobody needs to trade with Okelo. Let's let that team get the easy wins out of the way. Let's just let him
I need my trophy.
Manager.
I need my trophy.
We won't have that trophy when the season's over. So
I promise you I will.
Well, with that being said, we're gonna move on to the last part of the segment. We're gonna talk about who to sit. Obviously we talked about who to start. Now we're gonna go who to sit. Okelo, I'm gonna go to you first. If there's one guy you're sitting this week or one guy you recommend sitting this week, who are you going with?
He was my start last week, and I think Sean's going to get a kick out of this for this week, but I'm not trusting DK Metcalf this week. That Patriots defense is no joke, and it's going to be Stephon Gilmore matched up against DK Metcalf, one of the top 5 corners in the league, if not the reigning defensive player of the year. As much as I love DK Metcalf, and I think he's going to ball out for the rest of the season, I'm not going to trust him this week with that Patriots secondary. It's going to be a tough matchup overall for the Seahawks. This is going to be one of their earliest tests with that defense. So for fantasy owners, if you find another option, if you get maybe a John Brown or maybe if you get a Paris Campbell, I would recommend starting those two over DK Metcalf for me this week. If it's any receiver against Stephon Gilmore, it's a buyer beware. I just don't see him producing the same numbers in week 2.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, especially going up against the Patriots, even with the Patriots opt-outs on defense, I think the Patriots are good enough to, really give the Seattle Seahawks a tough time this weekend. Sean, you're a Patriots guy. Is there anybody you're going to be sitting this week, in any of your matchups?
Yeah, I would probably say Tyler Lockett. If I am a fantasy owner of any of the Seattle Seahawks wide receivers, I just wouldn't touch it. It's not just Stephon Gilmore, but it's J.C. Jackson. It's Jason McCourty. The Patriots, corners are probably, if not the best in the league, a top 3 group. So I don't see, and that's why I said Russell Wilson might be a guy that I wouldn't want to start in my league, just because it's not going to be a 450-yard, game for Russell Wilson. It's going to be more of a get what we can get, run the ball, and hope we can get some yards. And then probably a lot of play action and running the ball for Russell Wilson. So I would say probably Tyler Lockett and Okelo put DK Metcalf. So, yeah, I would just stay away from Seattle wide receivers. And then a sleeper guy that I probably wouldn't start after week 1 is Darren Waller, just because I'm looking at that, Raiders team, and they have a lot of weapons now. They have a lot of people that Derek Carr wants to get the ball to. Darren Waller was like the number 1 target last year, and now he's like 3 or 4. So if I'm you guys, I would go get a tight end off the waiver that possibly can make an impact quick and move him to the bench. But those are probably the 2 that I would set.
No, those are both good. I think, especially with DK Metcalf, like Okelo was saying, like you were just saying, it's going to be a tough time against the Patriots defense, and they might not be putting up as much points as some of the other wide receivers around the league that maybe have an easier matchup or, that just aren't going and facing a better defense like the Patriots. Nick, who's your guy that you'd be sitting this week?
I'm staying away from Melvin Gordon. And it's not really about how he played in week 1. I thought he played all right given the tough Titans up front 7. But he's going against Pittsburgh this week, and Pittsburgh shut down Saquon Barkley. 15 carries for 6 yards for an elite franchise running back like that. I don't know how much of a chance Melvin Gordon will put up this week, and I really don't trust anybody on this Denver offense as well, because outside of Noah Fant, there was really nobody else in that Denver offense who was worthy of starting last week based off their output. And I think it's going to get only worse this week. Pittsburgh's very talented in their front 7. And even a guy like Tyson Alalu, a guy who's been a journeyman in the NFL, he's replacing Javon Hargrave there in the middle for Pittsburgh. He shut down the run almost single-handedly in that game. But when you have Bud Dupree and TJ Watt, 2 edge rushers who play the run very well, and Cameron Hayward, it's just a very tough matchup for Melvin Gordon. And not to mention, Philip Lindsay is there in that backfield. So you really don't know what you're going to get week to week from the Denver running back room. So I'm going to have to go with Melvin Gordon. I think you have to sit him on your bench for this week.
Clearly you're saying things that Okelo agrees with. So he looks
like
happy
doing
with
this
that.
like cool like thing that you do in like grass, where you like lay down on grass and you're like, oh, like cute. Like
that's Juju Smith-Schuster's touchdown celebration. He's having fun again. And I'm having fun right now with the Steelers.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say, Okelo, let Juju do it. Like, don't bring it on to the show, Like, you're wearing a suit. Oh, he's wearing like a football jersey. Just, leave that to the professionals.
Please.
Well, I'm gonna go with here. I've thought about this. It's a little harder than you think, especially when you're trying to think it up. But for my sit, I'm going with Devontae Parker. He's a guy I have on my team. Devontae Parker kind of got banged up a little bit against the Patriots this past week. He didn't look great, especially with the injury concern now. He's kind of doubtful for this weekend. It seems like right now he is going to play, but there is still uncertainty. So, that's Ryan Fitzpatrick's pretty much his number 1 target. So with that, happening with an injury concern, you really start to have to consider, okay, if this guy's in my starting, wide receiving core, is this a guy I'm going to start? Because if he doesn't play, he's not going to get you points. And if he does play, but he's banged up, well, the Dolphins, I don't know if their offense is dynamic enough right now to where, they can get him more involved in that way where, the injuries aren't a concern. So I really don't trust Ryan Fitzpatrick right now either. So, just with the way the Dolphins are expected to be mediocre again this year, I don't know what Devontae Parker is going to get out of this season. Obviously, his last season was huge. But I may have taken a risk with taking Devontae Parker luckily he's on my bench. He's not one of my starting receivers. So I would sit him this week just with the injury concerns, and I don't know, if he's going to be performing that well this weekend.
He re-injured the hamstring.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have played him against the Patriots. That was one of the stupidest moves you could have done because you thought you had a shot, and then you play your best receiver that had a hamstring. And when you bring somebody back from a hamstring too quick, usually they re-injure it.
Exactly.
So
Gay should have learned that lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well said. I mean, it's really a gamble. I mean, that's what all this is a gamble. So, with that being said, that'll do it for segment 2. Good stuff. Love talking about, fantasy. Love talking about our teams. Hopefully, week 2 is a little bit better for me. Hopefully, it's better for some of us in the league too that caught an L in the first week. There's the replica of the trophy right there that Okelo's holding up.
I love how he's holding it up like his team went 1-0 this week. Just gonna.
Well, in one of my leagues of record, and one of my other leagues of record, I went with the exception of this.
We're not talking. No. I don't want to hear nothing about the other teams.
We're talking about this league. Okay,
This league.
You are dead last right now.
102 points. And just for context, okay, he wasn't the worst scorer in the league, but Jarrett Kappelman, host of HTF Hitting the Field, he put 93 up, but he didn't take out Kenny Galladay. So for context, Okelo would have been last. Just throwing that out there.
All right. Time for the greatest comeback story ever told, and I ain't talk about my Denver Nuggets. That's the next segment.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, that again, nice transition by Okelo.
Very good transition. I'll give him that. That was good.
Very good transition. That'll do it for this segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about NBA and preview of the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with you.
How has a failure or apparent failure set you up for a future success? And do you maybe have a favorite failure of yours?
I think there was a time in my life where I was living in Germany. I'd lived in Germany for a year. You might have read that in the article, actually. And I remember coming back from Germany and having the goal in mind to work in baseball, but really being completely resigned that there's no way I could possibly make it happen. I just didn't have, the technical coding know-how to be a numbers cruncher in a front office. I didn't really have any connections in the industry to speak of. And so I just felt completely dejected. And, I had this YouTube channel that had 800 subscribers. And the first time I made a baseball bits, which is, like you said, the flagship series, I probably got 200 views or something like that. But then I kept making them. And I think by the time I got to the third one, it just blew up. And then that's kind of where I got to where I am now.
Welcome back to HTF Bets. We are glad to be still joined here by Sean Green as we jump into last night's action and in the NBA, and we saw the Denver Nuggets. Yes, Okelo's Denver Nuggets. He's pointing to the hat. Very excited man over there. His Denver Nuggets, they have beat the odds. They have replaced a 3-1 series deficit, and they win the series. They move on now where they will face the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm going to go to you, Okelo. Your Nuggets, you've been calling them cardiac kids. You've believed in them before anybody else have. How much of a chance do you realistically think they have against LeBron's Lakers?
Sean, Nick, Robert, I don't know how many times we have to shock the world again. I told everybody from the beginning, don't doubt Denver. I believe that we will win. We slayed a Giants known as 3-1s. Now, we're facing the Lakers. LeBron knows a thing about going down 3-1, but he's never done it twice as well as we have. I think that people are going to be psycho if they really think that the Lakers are going to do it in 5. And Shannon Sharp could make a joke at it. He should know this team is built for the long haul. I've said it from the beginning of the season when the entire Western Conference flipped upside down with teams changing rosters. The Nuggets kept to their core, added Jeremiah Grant, got Michael Porter Jr. healthy, played a little bit of scheming in Bowl, and before you knew it, I knew that this would be the year we learned from Portland's mistakes last year to now get back to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since I was in 5th grade. This team, I have them in 7. I hate to say it again, but why not just for the heck of it? This team does have a realistic chance. I know, Sean, stop putting your head down. I said it from the beginning. The Lakers stink. They have no depth. They haven't played anybody just as close maybe as the Clippers or the Nuggets, and I'm ready this time, man. I'm telling you. Like Drake told me once, he said, listen, I don't want my chips plain. I want my chips with the dip. So you bring them dips. It's our turn. It's our time. It's time to begin the Denver dynasty, and it starts by winning this series in 7.
John, you look very bewildered right now. I am too. I think we all are.
You took a fresh hot L, Nick, and I need reparations. I need an apology before you can go eat at Popeyes or Huey Magoo's ever again.
Let me tell you right now, it doesn't matter what the Nuggets did. They're going up against LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You have nobody that's covering them, and I'm going to say it before I even get to Sean. The Lakers are going to sweep the Denver Nuggets. I'm going to put that
You know, when people tell me that, you know, Jeremy, from Jeremy to Armand to Chris to Kyle, they all said it. Even Robert thought about it, but just continue to doubt because we're going to shock the world again.
Well, I'm gonna get to Sean.
It don't matter.
Sean,
Lakers,
Sean,
Bakers, haymakers.
Yes. John, do you think the Nuggets' magic has run out, or do you think they still have something left?
Are you done, Okelo?
Go ahead. I don't want to talk no more.
I don't want to get interrupted, you know. Just as bad as Okelo's mic is, the Nuggets are going to be bad in the Western Conference Finals. All right? Let's not get it twisted with ourselves. I just want to be completely honest. I've never said one bad word about the Nuggets. I've always said, if you actually watch all of my appearances on HTFN, I said whoever came out of that Nuggets Jazz series probably will beat the Clippers. I said that. Now, then I retracted a little bit after game 1, and I did say the Clippers probably will beat them in 5 because the Nuggets just look very bad. But I did say at some point that whoever would come out of there would probably beat the Clippers. So I'm not going to apologize for that. What I will say is that is 2 straight times the Nuggets have played 7 games. They have played 14 playoff games in this bubble. Okelo, how many have the Lakers played in the bubble?
They've only played 10.
They played 10. Okay. So they've played a lot less games than the Nuggets. They're rested. They're healthy. Don't really have many issues. The Nuggets are winded. All right? The Nuggets, don't get me wrong, they are a deep, deep roster. I do think they have a better bench than the Lakers. Michael Porter Jr. is probably better than any single person on that Lakers bench. There's no question. He's a rising star. He probably should be starting in the next couple of years for the Nuggets. There's just no question.
Absolutely.
But let's not get it twisted with ourselves. Again, Okelo is a fan. If the Magic were in the Eastern Conference Finals, I would probably be saying the Magic are going to go in 7-2. But let's be realistic, okay? The Nuggets are not ready to beat the Lakers. This is almost a prime opportunity for LeBron to win another finals. They're playing for Kobe. They look healthy. They look tough. They have a couple bad games here and there, and then they go out and sweep. They lost to Portland, right? They come back and go 4-0 after. It's the same old story. So credit to the Denver Nuggets for being the Clippers. Nobody saw it coming. Everybody counted Nuggets out. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Like, we're getting way too ahead of ourselves thinking the Nuggets are making it to the finals. The Lakers are going to win. Congrats to the Nuggets for getting there, but they have no shot.
Robert,
Just already given out a participation trophy? That's disrespectful.
Yeah, they get 4th place. That's good.
No.
4th out of 30 teams. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
We'll kick it to our residential Los Angeles Lakers fan and Robert. Robert, is there anything about this Nuggets team that scare you? Are you afraid of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and if the Lakers can stop them?
I'd be concerned with Jamal Murray. I think Jamal Murray's been just on a tear this playoffs. Really, really proven now that he's a top guard. Just this is his breakout year. He looks great. Nikola Jokic, it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, the Lakers are going to, use the bigs more this round. JaVale McGee played like 1 or 2 games against the Rockets. Then they totally went small. Well, it's not really small ball when you got AD and LeBron and Markieff Morris. But, the Lakers tried to match that small ball style, sat Dwight Howard for the entire series, sat JaVale McGee for the majority of the series. I assume we're going to see both of them play at some point. probably throughout this entire series. But I mean, as for Nikola Jokic, I mean, the guy is great. The guy's a great player, probably the best big in the NBA right now. But we saw against the Jazz when Nikola Jokic goes up against another top center like Rudy Gobert, he tends to struggle against them. So I think if Jokic can have his way in the paint, it's going to be very tough for the Lakers. But I also don't know if the Nuggets have anybody to shut down LeBron and AD. A lot of people thought, oh, LeBron, AD, they're not going to be a problem in the playoffs. Look, Portland won game 1. Damian Lillard's just going to eat this Lakers team apart. Lakers win the next 4. They go down game 1 to the Rockets. Oh, James Harden and Russell Westbrook are going to feast on this Lakers team. Lakers got no bench. And look how easy it is for the Rockets to hit 3. Lakers win. Lakers lose game 1, win the next 4. I see this series honestly going 6. The Lakers way, I think. I don't know if the Lakers how they're going to come out in game 1. It's worked out well for them losing game 1 and winning the next 4. But they need to lock it down. I mean, against the last 2 games against the Rockets, they started to let the lead go. They get this like 20-30 point lead, and then it dwindles quickly because the Lakers get lazy. They start making dumb decisions in passing. They start making dumb decisions in playmaking. They turn it over a lot. So you can't do that against the Denver Nuggets, because right now I think the Denver Nuggets is going to be the toughest team they faced. They bowled through the Rockets, but I think they're going to, it's going to be a little bit harder against the Nuggets, especially because the Nuggets are a better defensive team. And you got the Jokic and Murray effect. Russell Westbrook really didn't show up against the Lakers at all. So I think it's going to be definitely an interesting series, certainly the most interesting series so far for the Lakers. I still favorite the Lakers in this, obviously, but I think that's just the consensus pick kind of right now. But I think you need to believe in this Denver Nuggets team too a little bit. They've proven so far that, when people counted them out against the Jazz, when people counted them out against the Clippers, they've upset those teams, and they upset the Clippers. I mean, 3-1 down coming back is really impressive against the consensus pick for a lot of people coming out of the West. So, don't doubt Denver, but I'm riding with the Lakers.
Yeah, I think the Lakers, they're humming right now offensively and defensively. I think they've been pretty well. My only concern with the Lakers is getting some additional scoring outside of LeBron and AD. I feel like every night it's kind of, sometimes it's Caruso, sometimes it's Kuzma, sometimes it's KCP. It's kind of just up in the air there. But I think it's the same problem with the Nuggets. I think you never know who's going to be their third best scorer either. But at the end of the day, it's about the stars. And I think LeBron and AD overwhelmingly is still better than Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, despite what they've done. And it's a great story that Denver has. I still think they're a piece away. And also LeBron James, last 8 appearances in the playoffs, he's gone to the finals all 8 times. It's what he does. And I would be stupid to count him out at this point in his career. So I think the Lakers are heavy favorites, and I think they're going to prove that.
But the history, though, Nick, not to interrupt, but every time
you
the
did,
Nuggets,
but it's okay.
I just needed to just clarify also a little something that's been off my chest a little bit, and I will admit this is the one playoff series where I say I'm scared a little bit. Since I was a kid, the Lakers have always bested the Nuggets in the postseason. The last times, 7-game series, Western Conference Finals, when it was Melo and Billups, 6 games, and then swept AI and Melo. So I'm not gonna lie, this isn't gonna be easy. I'm scared to play LeBron, but this is what you live for as a Nuggets fan. This is what you waited all your life for, and it's time to be with the Broncos and the Avalanche and have a championship banner. So I'm just prepared. We're going to get Will Barton back. I'm confident in that. He's looking like he's ready to come back. So we'll have another defensive piece that we need guard up. And I just believe in Blue Arrow and the Joker. And I can't wait for them to shock the world one more time and claim for the Mile High City their first championship. I'm booking a ticket to Denver if there is a in-person celebration, if we have one.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun series. A lot of stars in this one, and we're looking forward to seeing it. But I want to switch gears to what we saw on Tuesday night as well. The Eastern Conference Finals kicked off with Miami Heat and Boston Celtics. What a game we had. It went to overtime. The big block by Bam Adebayo has been the talk as we see Okelo putting on the Miami Heat. He's also a resident Miami Heat fan here in HTFN, believe it or not. But Bam Adebayo, as I was saying, made the big block on Jason Tatum to win the game by a score of 117-114. So I'm going to come to you, Okelo, now. Miami Heat, are they the favorite now moving forward in this series?
They are, but I will say this: that game one gave me as worse cardiac arrest as the Nuggets throughout the entire playoffs have. I mean, this is one series where I have to say where Miami is once again the underdog, because I have to give credit to where credit is due. The Celtics are a good team. They just don't have a big, and that has been their situation and their problem, I think, that has separated this team from getting to that championship. That's why they've lost 3 out of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals. I think that Miami can continue this momentum. I mean, Jimmy Butler, I mean, what a dagger that he put in. And then you still have the perimeter shooting with Duncan Robinson, Tyler Herro, Kendrick Nunn. I mean, this is a gritty team. If the Nuggets and Heat have one thing in common, that's grit. And Miami has, if not the defense to show for it. Boston has to tighten up. They got to be able to find a way to solve it, because you're not going to play Enes Kanter really to try to be your savior against any big time scorer. So I just think, though, it was one of those wins that you're glad that you didn't blow anything, and you just got to be able to pick up the pace and move along. But Miami needs to start dominating games, and it starts with making sure that they get their defense better. You have to shut down Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kemba Walker, because once they get hot, you got to be able to try to match the pace and up the tempo, especially when they get to the top of the key and shoot it. So I like Miami, but I'm not counting out Boston just yet. I said Heat in 7 from South Florida with love. So it's just, I'm going to expect game 2 to just temper my expectations, because we know the Celtics team. They're hungry, and they've always seemed to always bounce back right when they need to play. So I'm looking forward to Miami to still take it, but I'm still tempering expectations.
I'm going to come to you, Sean. Kemba Walker has not played well in this bubble, and he really has not played well in the last couple of few games for the Celtics. Is he that big of important of a piece? If they're going to beat Miami, does Kemba Walker have to step up, or do you think him playing the way he now, they can skate by and win this series?
They could definitely skate by. Like, they're a good enough team to skate by this Heat team. I think if you watch the game, the Celtics choked in the fourth. They let the Heat come back. The Heat put up 35 points in the fourth quarter. The Celtics had that game in the bag. They just dropped the ball. Kemba definitely needs to perform better. Goran Dragic scored 29 points. That can't happen, especially with Kemba. Kemba needs – okay. 29 points there, okay? So, listen – they don't have Gordon Hayward. The Celtics don't have Gordon Hayward right now. Again, nobody's talking about that. It's like, oh, this team is so deep. They don't have Gordon Hayward, and they're still this good. I'm just going to call this win kind of a fluke, just like the Raptors game winner with 0.5 seconds left. Listen, Bam made a great block. That is a once-in-a-million type play to make. No question about it. Heat get the victory. But if anybody, again, and to Okelo's point, this Heat team has some grit. There's no question. I said that when they played the Bucks. I said, don't be surprised if the Heat beat the Bucks, because the Bucks don't look like they're into it. The Celtics want this. This is a different team than the Bucks. The Bucks look like they didn't want it. The Celtics really do want it. They care. So good for Okelo. He's got 2 teams in the conference finals. 2 of his teams. I still don't understand that. But
West and East. What's there to understand?
But I do think the Celtics, I think they will end up winning the series, but they need production out of Kemba Walker to do that.
Sean, let me just ask you this quick question, though. What has Brad Stevens done as a coach? Has he won anything really necessarily? Whenever he gets to a big moment, he's known to choke artists as a head coach, whether it was with Butler as the past 3 Eastern Conference Finals. So I just see it no differently. Brad Stevens needs to find a way to motivate his team, in my opinion, in order to win this series. And
you don't think his team's motivated?
I think that you've looked at it in the past, even though the Celtics team has looked different in the past compared to the past for conference final teams. But I feel like they're going to get something going, and then they're going to feel deflated and they're going to feel defeated. That's always been Brad Stevens' case as a head coach. Mm-hmm.
Were he in the playoffs last year?
No.
Okay, they weren't. Were the Celtics in the playoffs last year?
Yeah, but they got bounced by the Bucks.
Okay, in what place? Did they get knocked out in the first round?
Second round.
It was second round.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're saying Brad Stevens doesn't know how to get his team to basically play up to that level. He doesn't know how to get his team excited to play.
He can get his team to play at the level that they need to play to be contenders, but there's always something right there. They're just right there, that close, and just something happens along the way where he just can't seal the deal.
So, okay, I completely disagree with that, to be completely frank. They've sealed the deal the last 2 series, right? They just beat the Raptors. They're going into this. I get they didn't beat the Bucks, but I feel like the Bucks were a much easier matchup going in. The Raptors looked way better than the Bucks in this bubble. I think, you're kind of going off of your fandom, right? You're looking at the Heat.
Track record. I'm going off a track record from Butler to even when Brad Stevens had his team against the Cavaliers. They couldn't get it done when it mattered most.
Has Brad Stevens missed the playoffs since he's been in the NBA?
He hasn't.
So let's be okay. So again, Eric Spoelstra has had many more years, and I'm sorry, Robert and Nick. I'm really sorry. I don't want to take over the segment, but again, let's keep it 100 here, Okelo. Right? Brad Stevens is a glorified winner. He's won at every single place he's gone to. When he was at Butler, winner. Now he's with the Celtics. He's only gone to the playoffs every year. If you look at this team, this has been a young team. Name one superstar on that team that the Celtics have taken from another team. 1, Gordon Hayward. Everybody else was drafted by that organization. I think if you really look at that team, it looks very similar to Denver. They did the same thing Denver did. Draft all their guys, get them to play at a higher level, and basically teach them how to be gritty and win with the guys you have, not forming super teams, okay? Listen, the Heat, no problem. They go out and get Jimmy Butler. They draft Tyler Hero. The Heat are a gritty team. They're a fun team to watch. But let's not go out and throw things saying that Brad Stevens doesn't know how to win or doesn't play big in the big moments. They just won a Game 7 against Toronto. They came out and won that game. They should have won the Game 1 against the Heat. They gave up in the 4th. But let's not sit here and throw out that Brad Stevens isn't a top-tier coach. If the Miami Heat hired Brad Stevens tomorrow, you'd be bouncing up and down saying, oh my God, he's never missed the playoffs.
Yeah, but the thing is that he didn't win a national championship at Butler. He hasn't gotten his team that far. I'm just saying he's a
that
great
makes him
coach.
not a winner?
I don't trust him. But Sean, like, coaches are defined by winning championships, whether college or pro. Brad Stevens hasn't won anything on that level on either side.
Tell me what championship has Eric Spoelstra won without LeBron James? That's when you get a little hesitant there, right? That's when you get a less. If Brad Stevens had LeBron James, he'd be winning championships too. Am I right? And Dwayne Wade, and so like let's we can go there if you want, but that's what I'm saying. You can call Brad Stevens not a winner, but Eric Spoelstra hasn't really won much without LeBron James. Now, granted, great coach. Eric Spoelstra is a top level coach. But, again, he also has Jimmy Butler, which they signed in free agency. Let's not act like if this team didn't have Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra would be a 7 seed going and playing the Raptors and probably getting knocked out of the first round. The Heat are a young team. The Celtics have way more experience right now than the Heat. The Heat are gritty, but throwing out assumptions that Brad Stevens is not a winner is blasphemous, and that should never be said because he is a winner just because he didn't beat or win a national championship at Butler against 64 other teams. That is just a bad take. That's a bad take.
Yeah, great back and forth by y'all there. But we're gonna go to Robert here. We're gonna get a word in from Robert.
Yeah, let's get some Robert in like that. Yeah, let's get Robert's comment.
You heard everything that Sean and Okelo threw at each other there. Great back and forth, as I said. Robert, what is your feeling on the rest of this series? Does Miami have the upper hand now going forward, or is Boston going to make a strong charge back into it?
Well, first off, Game 1, it's, again, great defensive play by Bam Adebayo, just one of the greatest defensive plays you'll ever see. And that's one where the Celtics look at that and say, man, if that layup just got in, if Bam doesn't make that incredible defensive play, tie game going overtime, but he robs him of overtime. So, I think for the Miami Heat, Miami's been the underdog throughout this entire playoffs. I mean, not against Indiana. They went into Indiana, swept Indiana. Go to the Bucks, beat them in 5. Win Game 1 against the Boston Celtics. They're 9-1 in the playoffs. I mean, I think it's kind of time to stop doubting this Miami Heat team a little bit. I don't think Miami is necessarily guaranteed to beat Boston. I think this is going to go 7. I think Boston's just that good of a team that it's going to be a back and forth. But listen, Miami's well coached. You know, you guys talked about Eric Spoelstra. I think Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the league. I said all along that he should have been a candidate for Coach of the Year. Nick Nurse kind of took a lot of the limelight, but Spoelstra should have been right up there, taking a team that missed the playoffs last year into being a consistent threat this year. Obviously, it's based off of regular season, but even still, what he did in the regular season with this team was impressive. Nobody expected Tyler Hero to be this good already. Nobody expected Duncan Robinson to be one of the best three-point shooters in the league already, especially since Duncan Robinson barely played last year. He's not a rookie this year, but he barely played last year. Tyler Hero's a true rookie. Dragic has been with them for years. And that's where I would disagree with Sean a little bit about the Celtics. And, you know, the Celtics, outside of Brown and Tatum, you know, Kemba Walker came from the Charlotte Hornets. They didn't draft him. They traded for him. Last year they had Kyrie. Gordon Hayward they got from the Jazz. So a lot of their top guys outside of Brown and Tatum, they've gotten via trade. So or free agency. And, you know, for the Boston Celtics, it's a very talented team. But when Kemba's supposed to be, I would say at this point, Tatum's your number 1. But when Kemba Walker's supposed to be your number 2 and he's underperforming like this, it's going to make it very hard for the Boston Celtics to compete against a very good defensive Heat team that can also go on these real big runs. The Heat struggle in third quarters, but other than that, they play a great game. Got a lot of bench depth, got a lot of veteran defensive presence, and Andre Iguodala and even Bam now. And of course, you know, Jay Crowder's been great for them. So I think with this Miami Heat team, right now they're just playing with house money. And I think that's why they're such an interesting team to bet on, because they've really defied a lot of the odds. People thought, oh, look, the Bucks are just going to tear them apart for the most part. Obviously, you know, Sean, you didn't think that, so fair play to you. But a lot of people didn't think they'd get past the Bucks, and they beat them in 5. And granted, yes, Giannis was injured for a majority of the series. He was banged up, didn't play well, but you know, this Miami Heat team is gritty, and they got something to prove, and I've been really impressed with them. So the rest of the series, I think it's going 7, but I think the Heat ultimately win out. I just you gotta bet the hot hand right now, and they're 9-1, and they're 9-1 for a reason.
Yeah, I think Miami has the upper hand, obviously, after game 1, but I'm going to make an argument for Boston real quick that they can get back in this series. They controlled that game for 3 quarters. They played well for 3 quarters. They played well enough to win, in all honesty, and they were up to, it went overtime for a reason, and it came down to the last shot. They can hang with Miami just like Miami can hang with them. They're very evenly matched, I think, but as I just said, they were in control, and Kemba Walker's not playing well. And I don't think Kemba Walker is just going to, you know, play like this the whole entire series. I think he's going to snap. He's too talented not to snap out of this little funk that he's in. And I think if he gets going, I think that's dangerous for Miami, because then you're going to have 3 lethal threats like that with Kemba, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown scoring, who could put up 20 a night apiece every single night if they really wanted to. So I think with that being said, I think Boston there's still a big chance they can get back in this series. And I think it's going to go 7 personally. And I would say watch out for Kemba Walker. So it's going to be very exciting to see. And Thursday night tonight is going to be game 2. So we'll be very interested to see what happens if Boston get back in the series or Miami can take a commanding 2-0 lead. But before we sign off, I want to go to everybody and just tell me your best bet of the week. What are y'all thinking is going to be your best bet? So I'm going to go to you, Okelo. What would you say would be your best bet of the week?
Whew, a lot on my mind, whether football, basketball. I'm going to go with my bet of the week, and I'm going to say that the Nuggets win game 1 over the Lakers. That's going to be my bet of the week. I'm going to stay true to the Denver pride of blue of the Mile High City. I know we've been talking Nuggets. I really wanted to think football, but I'm just not in that mindset right now. So I'm just going to stick it, make it short and sweet. Nuggets over the Lakers in game 1.
No surprise there. Okelo is sticking with his Nuggets. Sean, who are you betting this week?
I got caught off guard. I haven't even made my football picks yet, which again, I'm 11-3 to start the season, just FYI. I kind of want to go football. Maybe I'll go tonight's game. I'm just FYI, you will not hear me talk about the Bengals-Browns tomorrow. I'm just going to, for everybody watch, we are not talking Bengals-Browns tomorrow. But I'll place a bet on the game tonight. Cleveland's favored by 5.5. I'll take the Bengals at plus 5.5. the Browns just don't look very consistent to me. It looks honestly, the offense looks a little sporadic. It looks like Baker looks like what he's looked like the past couple of years. Kevin Stefanski kind of just looks like this. I just don't see a difference. The Bengals, they played with grit against the Chargers. If it wasn't for the kick, that game's going to overtime, and I think I'd probably pick Joe Burrow to go, and win that game. I think there's a stat. Again, don't quote me on this, but when two of the first picks play, the younger guy has won like 120 out of like something times. Again, probably stupid that I don't have it here, but I saw it and it's coming up now. So I'd probably go with the Bengals at plus 5.5 tonight over the Browns.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Sean. I think that's a very juicy matchup. If you're a better 5.5 points, I'm taking that for the Bengals because the Browns just look so dysfunctional. Baker Mayfield doesn't look like he has a clue what's going on with the team. No connection with Odell Beckham Jr. at all. So I'm not really high on the Browns at all either. So I think the Bengals are going to win that outright, honestly, tonight. Robert, who is your best bet of the week?
I'm going to ride with the Rams this week. Rams are favored by I think a point. They actually were the underdog coming into this matchup. First off, with the Eagles blowing that 17-0 lead. Tough matchup now, especially against a team like Washington. So I think with this Rams-Eagles matchup, the Rams receivers, it's very dynamic. I think they can match up really well against the Eagles secondary. Eagles secondary is not play well, in game one. And the offensive line was just as bad as it was for the Rams last year. Was great week one for them. For the Eagles, had a hell of a time trying to block poor Carson Wentz. So after taking that 17-0 lead, it was all Washington. So no doubt why the Rams are a slight, and I do mean slight favorite over the Eagles. But I would take that. I think the Rams get it done. I think the Rams can go 2-0. And that's a great start because, 49ers, direct rival. 49ers are 0-1 right now heading into week 2. So that division's going to be real interesting to watch all season long.
Really quickly, actually, Robert, which is actually kind of crazy. I didn't expect this. The Philly Rams line, Philadelphia's favored by a point right now.
Oh, so they're favored. Okay. So that's switched now.
Which
okay.
I would have assumed the Rams would have been favored, but I don't know why that is. So, yeah, I agree with Robert. If you're going to take a bet right now, I would totally go Rams +1. Yeah, I'm assuming that'll change in the next couple days, but, yeah, that's actually crazy. Yeah, hammer the Rams at this point.
Yeah. Well,
I like the Rams this week. Just not the uniforms, but I think it's going to be fun.
Those are terrible. Those are terrible.
Those away jerseys grew on me. Those bone jerseys, I like them.
I don't know, Sam. I kind of miss the old Patriots jersey. As much as I like the color rush, I just feel like all season long. I don't know, man. I just there's something about that old school with the silver and the little blue line stripes on the side. I miss that.
Wait, hold on. Time out. Did you just bring up the Patriots jerseys?
Yeah, I was surprised that
I was so confused. I thought we were talking on the Rams, and then we went. The Patriots jerseys look fine. They look good.
You don't miss the old school style?
Listen, every Patriots uniform, we don't look as bad as the Rams. We look good. The color rush looks fine. True. You'll see the white ones on Sunday night. You'll see the white ones. They'll look fine.
That's gonna be my first time seeing them. Like I said, I just missed it with the stripes, or even when you had the Patriot pat on the side back in the day when it was Drew Bledsoe with the pinstripes. That would have been cool to bring back.
We'll see. Okay. We'll see the white ones this week, like Sean said. But that'll do it for us today. It's been a good time here to talk to you. Sean. Thank you for coming on. And if you're watching, please tune in tomorrow as Sean Green will break down week 2 of the NFL season, as well as an in-person interview with Jason Beatty, UCF reporter, talking Knights football as they take on Georgia Tech this week in the first game of the season. Thank you again for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Go Knights, charge on, baby.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.